I just want to say thank you to everybody for inviting me today. It's a real privilege and honor to be part of, as usual, Michigan State University and such a big group of so many different people from different industries and from around the state and from around the nation. I understand that it's just been an absolutely tremendous coming together, networking, and much more than that, policy discussion and so forth about the talent issue. So I congratulate all of you. There aren't many groups. We were talking at our table how difficult it is really because we're so busy. You know, big institutions like a university and big institutions like businesses, how do we pull them together? Who has time to do it and come together and actually have real, meaningful and productive conversations? So there aren't many events like that. So again, I very much, Doug and everybody, congratulate you today for putting on such an amazing event. My name is Bob Trezise. I'm the president and CEO of Lansing Economic Area Partnership, and I understand that there was a different name going around earlier today, liberal, environmental, I don't know, something or other, and I'm not taking a position one way or the other on that. I'm just saying that we're actually Lansing Economic Area Partnership, LEAP, and we work on economic development issues for the greater Lansing area. Ingham, Eaton, and Clinton County. Governor Snyder here in Michigan has split the state into 10 regions and placed in sort of the coordination role a regional economic development entity of each one of those 10 regions. We're region number 7, and we are the Ingham, Eaton, Clinton, greater Lansing area. And the job is an extra privilege for me, and I get extra passionate about that you might see glimpses of today because it is my hometown. I grew up in the city of Lansing, and I did go to their public schools, Cumberland, Otto, and Sexton, and I went to school here at Michigan State University. And so the job is really extra personal to me about economic development and about the topic today of talent development. So just for a moment, I asked the crowd, how many people are from academic institutions or Michigan State University in the crowd? Yep. And how many people are from the business community, private businesses? Yep. Excellent. So there's a good mix. Out of all of you, how many of you love economic development? Come on, that's not many of you. I'm worried. Obviously, I think economic development is the greatest talent profession there possibly could be. Economic development is remarkable as a profession because we get to touch everything and play with everything, ranging from real estate to historic preservation to high-tech companies to factories, factory workers, to figuring out how to get roads done and sewer and water. And of course, we have to deal with politics. We have to think about city development and planning and urban development, urban sprawl, and everything else in between, the environment, pollution. Economic development is really remarkable. Most people honestly think about, and I worry why so few hands went up, economic development as far as credits and spreadsheets and math and this kind of thing. And I would just suggest to you just a little commercial about economic development and being a legit talent for you to consider sending folks our way is really what economic development is about, is helping people. I talk about it in my office every day. Economic development is not necessarily about helping business. That is a means to an end. We're supposed to be building a great community. That is what economic development is. We love helping businesses to do that, but that is our end measurement. Did we help people? So we count jobs. Yes, that's the bottom line of economic development. But actually in my office, we don't talk in terms of jobs. We talk in terms of families. Every one of those jobs is a family of 4 on average. So we talk in terms of helping families. We think we're the greatest environmentalists that there are, that we have more effective tools to actually impact the environment than anyone else. All of those crummy buildings that don't make you feel good on corners that are abandoned or blown out, you know who actually brings those to life and puts them back on the tax rolls and makes them beautiful again and filled with people's dreams and jobs? Economic development. You know who you drive past sites with old coal piles, or you know that that's environmentally contaminated from the past, and maybe it's even next to a river, and you know that all kinds of pollutants are flowing into that river day and night for decades and decades. You know who cleaned that up, typically speaking, more than anyone else? Economic development with the private sector. You know who thinks about and worries about urban sprawl? and how do we contain costs, of growth and those kind of things, economic development. So there's a lot more to think about in the actual profession of economic development than just our bottom line. Although, let me add, in the last 3 years, LEAP has helped the private sector create $802 million of private investment and 3,200 private sector jobs to the Lansing area, which are huge numbers for us. And of course, we're hugely proud of that too. So I will add that on. But the number one issue, and the reason why we're all here, the number one issue in economic development in our society is the talent question. So much so that yesterday, and in the newspapers today, was the state of Michigan announcing the recast of, basically 40% of their entire state government being put together in a brand new department called Talent and Economic Development. This is a $1.1 billion annual budget with 1,600 employees working in that department across all different parts of state government, from housing to workforce development to economic development, trying to put it all together in one stop shop fashion to address or try to help address the talent placemaking, the talent issue that is alive and well here in Michigan. It's the number one, when we talk to businesses, and of course you all know this, it is the number one issue. It's not taxes or tax rates or any other issue. It is, I can't find the right kind of people. And that is the number one issue. And just to show economic development has to morph and be nimble and understand the new issues in economic development. I now have what is called a talent and placemaking director and a diversity director in my economic development office. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But in terms of economic development, so this is the number one issue. What policies and programs are we going to create in this new environment to meet this new need? How do we be unique about our approach when actually, as you know, the issue is not unique to us, Greater Lansing area in this case, at all. It's a national issue. It's a statewide issue. It's perhaps even a global issue. But here's something even maybe a little more scary about it, is that the baby boomers really haven't started to retire yet. I mean, get your arms around that for a minute. In 2018 is when the first wave of baby boomers actually begin to retire. And wow, for a 20-year period after that, if you think there's a lot of job openings now that don't go filled, I mean, it's only begun. I mean, it's only barely begun, statistically speaking. So my secret worry about, and from an economic development perspective, trying to address and help with the talent issue is just that the issue itself is so massive. I mean, how do you get your arms around it? How do you make sense of it? How do you create, from my perspective, tangible, programs? We're here to help. How do we do that in a most tangible way to you, the private sector and the university environment, and everyone in between, people? How do we actually address this? I mean, it's like the proverbial Jell-O on the wall, trying to nail the Jell-O on the wall. I think about it all the time, and everyone gives me a different answer about what even the definition of the talent, problem is and the solution is. And of course, one is tempted to say, sort of throw your hands up and say, it's an issue of wages, and just be done with it at that. But of course, that's a simplification. I think it is honestly part of the answers, as usual, and one that it actually isn't maybe talked about enough, but it is only part of the solution. The solution is so, well, whatever the solutions are so much more vast than that. But so from a policy sense, a tangible sense, from an economic development perspective, what do I think and suggest to you could be, actual tangible economic development approaches to the talent issue? And I'll talk about these in more detail in a minute, but I'll just list them right now, what I think they are. And again, maybe it doesn't, you've already recognized it. You're more on the tip of the spear than I am, but as far as being thinking about the talent issue, economic development is just catching up, but it's so unusual for economic development. I mean, it's brand new. That's what I love about economic development, but how do we get our arms around it? What do we do? What is it? And, well, here's some possibilities, I think. All decisions I think that we make in our Economic Development Office, and then I'm going to suggest this, all decisions that schools and parks departments and businesses and mayors and schools, universities, sewer departments, river trail, everybody, I think, should be asking themselves every decision every day that they have to make, is this a global type of decision that I'm making? Would this make a difference on a global stage? Is this is the decision I'm making us more competitive from a global standpoint? I think that's one big question. All individuals now, we have to recognize, I have 4 kids. Are 18, 16, 14, and 12. They all individuals, kids, adults. Over 55 is actually the biggest area for entrepreneurial development. They actually have money. And they're retiring somewhat early. All individuals, though, whoever they are, have to think of themselves now as their own CEOs. You know, that they are not going to go into the 30-year job in the one place, but that they're their own CEO at whatever skill level they are, and that they are managing their own business, and that that business is managing and fostering their own core, in their heart, in their brain, creativity. Thirdly, that businesses who cannot successfully pursue this talent and creativity are really going to have difficulty surviving in the global economy of the future, especially when the baby boomers begin to go. So talent and placemaking development are huge issues that businesses need to begin to grasp from an economic development perspective, but most importantly from their own profit standpoint. Number 4 is we have to create a place. And that means spending a lot of money and a lot of attention in new ways, in more focused and dedicated ways to arts and culture, to a sense of walkability, to a sense of the environment, to water, to parks, to river trails, that we have to spend a lot more time on those things because the millennials and below them are hugely focused on that. Number 5, we have to absolutely demand diversity with our place. Diversity, tolerance, and being a welcoming community, not just policy but people, has to be totally reflected throughout the entire community in a much better way. Because if we're a global community, if the only way we can succeed is by being a global community, if the only way a business, big or small, the only way they can survive in the future is being a global company, well then that means we have to touch and work with people all over the world, literally. And as it turns out, all those people are all here in our community, by the way, too. That's your potential talent pool. So we have to have a sense of diversity, understanding, and it's hard, but understanding when someone has a completely, not just a different set of opinions, but maybe a whole different set of principles, of values, and yet being welcoming and tolerant of that. That's not easy. And those are the kind of things that we need to work on. A couple more steps is we have to create an entrepreneurial culture. We have to create new major urban downtowns. The universities must connect to all these activities I just listed. Corporations must connect to all of these activities. And we have to really innovate in our training and education programs in preparing young people, not just K through 12, but even before that, and certainly at the university level. But really, it has to go throughout life as well. So if I could, I'll just take some moments here to talk a little bit more detail about these economic development strategies that I would suggest to you that maybe we could incorporate from your and my perspective. Number 1, the global decisions. The day and age of city versus township, university versus the college town, region versus region, even state versus state is really totally gone. I mean, that is really old thinking. The world has not really shrunken, and I actually don't think it's flat. I think it's mightily curved and huge. But to be seen on that global competitive stage, therefore, you really have to stand tall as one united region. Private and public sector together, cities and townships together, different departments, arts and culture and job creators, people that environmentalists and I don't know, is there anything such thing as non-environmentalists anymore? But you know what I'm trying to say, is that we have to all stand together and present ourselves as one unified factor, as one big region with all of our assets relentlessly pointing outward, aimed in the same direction. So every decision we make, no matter how seemingly trivial or small, mowing parks, that's a global decision. To me, that's a very big global decision. What kind of curriculum you're developing in the school, what kind of HR policies we were talking about at a company, all of this adds up. These are all huge global decisions. Don't underestimate that. It's not impossible to be your own CEO. I mean, the overhead, is there overhead anymore? I mean, I see it in my kids. It's in the palm of their hand. It's incredible. It's a phone. It's a connection to the world. It's an idea. It's the connections. It's the specialization that is available oftentimes for free. I don't know how anybody makes money anymore, I guess. It's so much for free globally. It's crowdfunding support. I heard Mark Cuban bitterly complaining about the advent of crowdfunding that is pushing out venture capitalists. And I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it? The total revolution in the way we're thinking and doing business is happening now. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling. But really, truly, young people, a kindergartner, no kidding, a sixth grader, a high schooler, a college student, a college professor, a retiree, everybody in between is your own CEO, managing your own sense of creativity. And there are a few examples of that. At LEAP, we started a high school youth entrepreneurship program. And I know you've been asked before, but how many people when we were in high school that there was somebody that ever mentioned to us at all about being a CEO in life, growing up to be a CEO? Does anyone? Now, are you really serious, or are you ignoring me completely at this point? There was, okay, one hand. Thank God, one hand went up. I should ask some more questions. We'll see what kind of responses we get. But, I mean, so what we did is we worked with the schools and our sponsors with our corporations. We rented out a huge room at the Lansing Center. We hired a consulting firm, and we put 9 months together worth of training trainers, who then those trainers went into high schools and middle schools all throughout our 3-county area and taught about entrepreneurialism. And we reached out with, it was called E-Generation and Junior Achievement. I mean, anybody we could talk to that's touching kids as far as entrepreneurship goes. And we asked them to put in place a pretty serious-minded, identify the kids who are really putting together a business plan, have an idea, a business plan, work on their soft skills, and we're gonna have this trade show, essentially. And we're gonna invite the kids that are really ultra prepared, and they're gonna have their own booth, and they're gonna be there all day long, and universities and teachers and parents and kids and businesses and everybody else and judges, by the way, from our sponsors, are gonna go around all day long and talk to these young entrepreneurs. And we had 55 kids total from our region for the first year of doing this. It was one of the most inspirational days I ever spent in my life. You would go up to a kid at their booth, a young adult at their booth, and they would stand right up, they look you right in the eye, shake your hand, and so beautifully articulate their idea. Not just what the idea is, but what they expect in profit and why and where sales are gonna come from and the marketplace. And it was just mind-boggling. And by the way, I don't know what it really means, but I'd always ask every one of them, what are you gonna do after you graduate? And I think it was 75% plus were all going to Lansing Community College rather than a major university. Again, I don't know what that really means, but I thought it was really interesting. But regardless of whether they really go on and create their own business, I thought, you know what? I hear businesses every day complain bitterly that it's the most fundamental that they can't get, soft skills. Someone who will look them in the eye and shake their hand and describe something in clean, logical sentences. And this entrepreneurial program was at a minimum creating those soft skills amongst a super bunch of young people. At a maximum, maybe they really will create a business. And we had all kinds of programming that would take them on into the next steps of creating that program. The second annual one is April 29th, and the school districts caught on. So what happened this year is the school districts on their own have instituted these mini business pitch sessions all over the 3-county area, and they're all feeding into our system. So it'll be interesting to see in a couple of weeks how many kids, young adults, we get signed up. But this creates a real spirit of entrepreneurialism. there's what's called CTE, which the governor is going to focus on, which is career technology investment. And I just have to tell you a little story about my 16-year-old daughter, who is in the Grand Ledge schools here locally. And she came home one day and said, I'm going to be going to Lansing Community College the first 2 hours of school every day, Dad. She's a junior. And I'm going to be working in an insurance company. You know, now let's be honest. Most parents are like this. What? I don't understand. When do you take your college classes so you can go to college? I don't get it. What is this honestly, is this vocational training? We don't really like to say that, right? Vocational training. And she said, no, I really am interested in business. I'm not really sure what it is, but I'm in business. Anyway, she ends up being at Farm Bureau. We have huge Fortune 500 insurance companies here in the Lansing area. And every two hours, she gets Lansing Community College 9 college credits. The teachers are college professors from, hold your ears, Michigan State, but from Olivet College in this case, who have a curriculum, a major that's for insurance. And I watched my daughter grow up because she's treated like an adult. The expectation is that she has to dress up every day. She has to be absolutely on time. And it's hard. I mean, the classes are really hard. She gets 3 different certifications, plus all the college credits, and a financial break to go to Olivet College. And right now, on average at Olivet, apparently each graduate of this insurance program has on average three job offers from around the nation. So, I mean, it's just, I know Michigan State, everybody has these kind of programs, but it's just interesting that in that county, Lansing, in that county, they have 12 of those different kinds of pods in different industry. So as a parent, honestly thinking about, you know, wanting my daughter, like everybody, to go to college. And by the way, her other 3 classes during the day is chemistry, brutally, chemistry, algebra, and Spanish. I mean, she is in the college classes. It's just providing more choice to her and a better rounded and better, did I mention that she gets a paid internship this summer, 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday at Farm Bureau as well. So, I mean, think about if we instituted a program like that, totally across the board in iTech with IBM and I see Kirk here, you know, all the work that's being done through iTech here that is attempting to get kids during the summer in the mobile bus too, right, Kirk? And trying to talk about programming, computer programming, and coding, and I mean, really serious. So think if we did these pods per school district all over the country. It's just choices. It doesn't mean your kid, like I thought, wait a minute, what is being tracked in non-college? Is that what we're talking about? I got a little revelation. I don't think that is what we're talking about. So another area is businesses must accept a responsibility for the place. Because a lot of building place, again, cutting parks, grass at parks, and making sure that roads don't have potholes and water is clean and river trails safe, and all of that stuff really matters. And of course, almost all of that falls on the responsibility of the public sector. Except one little problem with that. The public sector doesn't have any money anymore. I mean, it's really a serious issue. And there seems to be no hope in the horizon the next few decades of raising revenue, does there really, actually? I mean, more people are not going to be working, the baby boomers. But anyway, this is where the private sector, if you're a private business in the room and you're thinking about how do I land talent, how do I get the top global talent, part of your thinking has to be stretched out of the box too. And I know that was a big topic this morning as well. But you have to think about investing in the community. MSU Federal Credit Union is amazing in this area, where they have decided that investing in jazz, in arts and culture, the Wharton Center, in river trails, in philanthropic efforts, builds up a better place, thus making it more likely as a place that younger talent, Michigan State University probably primarily in this case, stays here rather than going away. A lot of them are going to go away. A lot of them should explore the world. We want people to do that. But the only thing we're saying is there should be a choice, though, if you'd wish to stay. And so much now their decision is based on what's hip and cool, and is it fun, and does it feel lively, does it feel global? I think that's the #1 question they ask themselves. Is it cosmopolitan? The only way that's really going to happen is by the private sector stepping up in a new and fantastic philanthropic way to make that happen, because that will impact your profit bottom line. next up, to continue on about placemaking quickly, the eye matters. What you see, and especially what you see first, really matters. Quality infrastructure, arts and culture. LEAP gives away 3 $10,000 grants a year for municipalities to build public art sculptures and put them in public places. That was one of my first initiatives when I came on board at LEAP 3.5 years ago. My CEOs were like, what? I don't understand. Is that jobs? I don't really get it. What are you doing? It's part of that placemaking. It symbolizes some sense of greater wealth or prosperity or opportunity. If nothing else, it's fun. And this is what talent is definitely looking for. But parks and trails and waterfronts and roads matters as much as police and fire. I would argue, quietly, no one will tell, more than police and fire. These are upkeeps. They're signals of prosperity and wealth. It matters more to families and talent than anything else. The place must seem cosmopolitan, full of choice on a global scale, opportunities to be free, to make money, to live according to individual principles. It takes money mostly from the public sector, but the private sector is absolutely going to have to step into place. I just want to point out a project along these lines is Accident Fund. Is another huge national insurance company. And 7 years ago, they were making a big decision whether to locate in a greenfield site outside of the Lansing area or leave the state for Wisconsin. Their current location was in downtown Lansing. And you know what downtowns, I'm just going to be really honest with you, the problem with downtowns is that they're 4 times as expensive as being out in a greenfield area. There's no damn parking right outside the door. The properties are contaminated. The buildings are old. The infrastructure is 100 years old. You have to deal with real severe politics that seem different from maybe what other areas are. You have essentially every reason for someone to not make that choice or to leave. And of course, as we know, over the last 75 years, essentially that is what corporations have done. And it's absolutely killed us because now, as we learn, the whole talent issue, primarily what the younger talent wants, the global talent, is that urban downtown environment. And so, it's not right for everybody all the time. But in the case of Accident Fund, they took a look at the bottom line figures, and they were god-awful, Stephanie. But on the other hand, we worked hard with incentives. We put a lot of incentives in place, tens of millions of dollars. At best, that makes the site sort of comparable to a greenfield site. At best. It doesn't cost a taxpayer. Incentives don't cost a taxpayer a penny of money. Not a penny of money. But what it does is allow a company just simply to make a fairly even choice between a greenfield site and a brownfield site. That's all we're asking for. And then they're free to make whatever choice. Then make whatever. But I think it's nice as a society, as economic policy, if we can just have things evened out. So there's at least a rational choice of equalness or something like that. In the case of Accident Fund, they chose downtown. You know why, primarily? Because they thought about the talent issue in the future. So they rehabbed an abandoned power station downtown. They took a smokestack off the roof. We cleaned up millions and millions of dollars of pollution along the river. We built them a new river trail, a new city market across the river. We tore down half a parking ramp that created a horrible tunnel that no human being would ever walk under during the day or night. I mean, it was a $182 million project, 500 new jobs, and those 500 jobs are people from all over the globe. And their philosophy was, our building itself, this incredibly historically preserved, amazing, horribly expensive building, was worth every penny in downtown Lansing because we think it gives us a competitive advantage in the global marketplace recruiting talent. That whole project was about talent. So that is a power of placemaking. I'll note that IBM has another philosophy that's worked really well, which is they're literally on campus of Michigan State University. Jackson National Life has put what they call the Zone in downtown East Lansing, which is nothing more than a talent portal to build a pipeline after a couple years of internships of a couple hundred students a year. If they can get 30 of those students a year more comfortable in an insurance company, I'm saying that with love, that they will feel more comfortable. MSU Federal Credit Union, their entire philanthropic approach is a huge talent. So you got to look at the talent issues differently. I know I must be I'll wrap up a little bit here. The diversity, I've already said it, diversity is huge. Entrepreneurial programming, though, is where I want to complete my talk, is we have more incubators in our region than any other region in the state of Michigan. We feel, this is what I learned about entrepreneurialism, is very difficult to measure. It's really tough for economic development and us all to be involved in entrepreneurialism because it comes and goes. And it's not a lot of jobs, except when you land a Google. Oh, you'll never land Google. Really? As it turns out, Larry Page grew up in the city of East Lansing, and we completely lost him. So don't tell me that you can't have the Google. We already lost one. So you never know. You got to keep these things up. So MSU has created the Hive, which is a system of incubators in the dorms to incubate students and startup businesses. In the fall, they're putting in place an entrepreneurial minor where students from any discipline can take a minor in entrepreneurialism, and then they get in the Hive incubator, and then the Hive incubates or pushes the students on into our Hatch that MSU runs with us at LEAP in the region, and then that leads into our TIC, Technology Innovation Center, which is another incubator that LEAP in the region runs. We also started up the state's first fashion incubator called The Runway in an abandoned department store in downtown Lansing. Spartan Innovations at MSU is helping with all of these. So our region, LEAP, and MSU Spartan Innovations, Michigan State University are coming together, the community and the university, in entrepreneurialism. We also have tons of programming that goes along with that, and events like Greenlight, which is sponsored by Spartan Innovation and MSU Federal Credit Union, and LEAP and the MEDC. That's upcoming on March 31st. There's the Hatching, the Launch, Youth Entrepreneurship Week, Maker Week, Startup Weekend. All these events and programming and incubators are creating businesses like crazy and jobs. But I'm going to suggest to you again that I learned that they're doing something else, because I was in a meeting with a bunch of MSU students who typically leave, like nearly all of them. And a lot of them now are staying in the region over the last couple of years. Why? They talked about all the events and incubators, and I said, really, are you in one? Are you starting business? Oh, no, I'm not starting one. Well, what is your interest in it? It signals to me that you're something fun, that something Boston-like, or San Francisco-like, or Bay-like, or something London or Stockholm, or something big is happening here, that there's a sense of creativity, that there's a new mood, a new energy level. It's a signal. It's psychological. It's hard to tie down more than that, but it really has a lot to do with retaining talent. A company called Eightfold, which is a nice creative company. They do filming. They do films, actually, is what they do. And it was 8 MSU students. This is a nice little story, though, what entrepreneurialism can do for a community. Eightfold, 8 students. They're from LA and Chicago, wherever. They definitely all would have been long gone, every one of them. 4 or 5, 6 years ago, long gone. But instead, they created this company because they are inspired by, I don't know, all the talk or the buzz or something like that of all this new entrepreneurialism. They created their business. They raised money. They got money from us. They ended up being in MSU's Hatch. MSU Hatch paid for some things for them as well. We got some money for them. LEAP did. And a lot of other assistance, and lo and behold, they produced a $25,000 film that 2 weeks ago had its debut at NCG theaters here in the area, and was a tremendous success. The theater was completely sold out. All 8 of those MSU grads or seniors, I'm telling you, 7 or 8, something like that, would have left. Instead, all 8 have apartments, are buying homes, are spending money in the restaurants, are living here. And by the way, even if that business doesn't continue, that's your talent in the future for your business, and what incredible talent it will be. So there's other, the universities, I've already given some examples, the entrepreneurial cross training, the new minor that is being introduced curriculum-wise. Corporations really have to take the responsibility. But I think all this can add up from an economic development perspective as a unique and different way, tangible way, measurable way to try to really somehow, some way get our arms, economic development, around the talent issue, and hopefully along the way engage in dialogue and help that we desperately need from you, university. Michigan State University is incredible. And from the private sector, if we can pull more and more people here to help. One last story, and then I'll be done, is in our fashion runway, I promise, but it's worth talking about, is an MSU student from the UP who is a senior now, and without any question would have been the kind of talent that Accident Fund or IBM or MSU Federal Credit Union or other businesses, the kind of talent that you wouldn't have been able to tap into, because she was clear as a bell. She's leaving. She's leaving California. That's what, or beyond California, who knows? India, who knows? Somewhere. And she got interested in our fashion incubator. She had a bug about fashion. So we meet with her, we get and counsel her. She meets with Spartan Innovations at MSU. And what happens is Spartan Innovation pays her rent now in our space in downtown Lansing in the fashion incubator called The Runway. And her business is now putting on the first fashion show in our new incubator on April 11th called Fashion for the Fire. The proceeds go to abused children, but she works on our industrial sewing machines, our cutting table, networking, and here's a prime, who knows in the end of the day whether she really proceeds and has a huge fashion business. But you never know, do you? Again, that Larry Page story. But at a minimum, here's somebody that's probably falling in love with our community and feels it's inspirational to her and is going to be available for your talent pool to select from in the future. So with that, yes, mercifully, now I really am done. And there's so much more to say, of course. But I really appreciate your attention and coming together. Thank you so much.